What's going on, YouTube? Smaldor here with an early thoughts on Dragon Age the Veilguard. I know there are plenty of other videos out there, obviously from people who have played the game before release, plenty of people who have all the time in the world to play games all the time, but I do not. But I still felt like after watching and kind of like reading a lot of non-spoiler reviews about the game, I still wanted to kind of do like an early thoughts on how I feel about the game as someone who has played I've played Origins and I've played Inquisition, both of them multiple times. For whatever reason, I never played Dragon Age 2. I loved Origins, and I also loved Inquisition. I kind of want to talk about Dragon Age. I have about 9 hours, I want to say, in my game. And yeah, let's just talk about it. You know, there was obviously, before the game was released, there was a lot of discussion about like all of the, and I really don't like using these terms, but there was a lot of DEI and woke stuff, discussions about the game. Guys, if you've played Dragon Age, these games have always had this kind of stuff in the game. Fantasy world, whatever, who cares? Is it a good game, right? You know, like, please, you know. And it's not like they're shoving it down your throat, at least not where I'm at anyway. But for me, I have zero issue with anything like that whatsoever in the game. And I've honestly had zero issue with that in any game I've ever played, regardless of any games that people have talked about. Okay. So what? You can choose your pronouns when you make your character. What? Okay, if you're not that, then choose the one. Like, who cares? But what do I care about? And why do I still think after 9 hours, only 9 hours in the game, but I feel like I have a really good grip on like at least the type of game I'm playing? I think the game's mid at best. Let me first say what I think is good. This game is gorgeous. Visually, this game is incredible. Backdrops, the environments, the art direction, just the graphical fidelity of everything. This game looks incredible. Maybe not the characters and the character models. I think they look a little funny. Specifically, there's two things that I noticed about the character models. I feel like the faces look like they're pseudo cartoony. It's like 3D animation trying to look realistic, but also not look realistic. And then on top of that, the bodies are a little too ultra bulky, I think, just on standard. The body types look, I feel like I'm playing, you know, they're trying to have like this ultra unrealistic, stocky, bulky body type. That also doesn't make any sense to me. At least for a lot of the characters. But it's mostly the face. The face just looks not right. The hair looks phenomenal. And like I said, aside from the character models and most specifically the faces, like I said, the graphics and the art direction and the style and everything in this game looks incredible. Another thing that honestly really warrants talking about is the game's performance. I have maybe like a mid-high-end PC now. It's weird not to say that I have a high-end PC anymore, but I'm still rocking, you know, well over 100 FPS at all times. I play on 1440p. I do not have a 4K monitor, so that would be why. But otherwise, everything else is on like max settings. Game runs phenomenal. You know what I mean? So those things are great. And another thing that's really driving me in, or pulling me in, but it's still kind of like driving me to play the game, is the overarching story and the world lore and everything, like of the world and everything. I still find extremely interesting. I'm very drawn in by it. The characters included. But what do I not really like? What do I think is not so good? There's already plenty of videos out there that talk about this too, honestly, but the dialogue itself, I'm not talking about the voice actors or the delivery or anything like that. I'm talking about the dialogue that's being said. I've heard a couple of things from other people talk about it, and I think it makes perfect sense to me. One, pretty much all dialogue is being a facilitator of just saying what's happening. It's just informative, period. And two, it's being said in a way that would be like equivalent to young adult stuff. I'm talking, when I say young adult, I'm meaning like 13, 14, 15-year-olds type of dialogue. Like when I was growing up, Goosebumps was a series of books that kids would read. They were supposed to be like horror books for kids, kind of thing, or younger teens, things like that. And that's the kind of dialogue that you have that this game has. Like, it's performed well. But, I mean, there's only so much the performers can do with what they're given. But again, it's one of those things where it's like the content itself, though, like the overall thing that the dialogue is part of, like the story of the game, everything like that, the characters, the backstories and everything of all your companions is awesome. And I just got this new companion and I'm like, I'm all about it. You know, I'm like, I want more. But, you know, the other things, the UI, I think is terrible. I think it's trash. I think it looks like I'm playing a mobile game. Like, it has the UI design looks like it was designed for mobile. And, you know, I'm not yucking on anyone's yum, but I hate mobile games. I just think maybe a big part of it is just because they were given such a bad rap for so long of them just being cash cows of gotchas and things like that. That, I don't know, but that's just how it is. I despise mobile games. And the UI looks like a mobile game. The systems of gear, the upgrade pathing, and all of that as well with the merchants and getting multiple, has been dumbed down. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, and basically the way I look at it is Dragon's Age Origins was essentially a CRPG. Not quite, because it was BioWare's. So they had Knights of the Old Republic back in 2002. And then they basically took that framework and made their own game of Dragon Age. And that's what Dragon Age Origins was. But it felt very similar and played very similar to Knights of the Old Republic. Inquisition definitely towed the line more of going action-oriented, a little more streamlined, more mainstream, obviously with the big open-world zones. Things like that. I personally loved it. I know not everyone did, but I loved it. The combat, however, was a little... So, I personally actually prefer the Origins combat, but I still think Inquisition's combat was still fine. I was somebody who did pause a lot, switch control of characters a lot, but I know a lot of people that didn't and were able to get through the game just fine. The Veilguard has definitely pushed it way more in the line of, like, this is just an action game. You know, there's a lot less intricacies to the combat. There's a lot less intricacies to the game systems. You look at the skill tree. Excuse me. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of stuff, you know. You have 3 classes when you start the game, and each class has 3 specializations, right? Okay, so, you know, like 9 classes, essentially. That's not bad. The skill tree looks like a mini PoE, like Path of Exile type skill tree. But not really. It's extreme. To me, I think it's extremely shallow. It's basically like, here's a few key things that are really cool, like a small handful, and everything else is just flavor, really. And to me, that's boring. There actually is, I noticed the last time that I played the game, there actually is like a page you can go to that shows, like, breaks down all the stats of your character, which is actually really cool. But I bet you it doesn't mean anything, really, at the end of the day. You're just gonna be more focused on your couple abilities. You can have 3 abilities. I guess 4 with the runes or something like that that you unlock a little bit later. But that's it. The game just feels like it's been dumbed down from each iteration of the previous installment. And BioWare is essentially willing to sacrifice and alienate their original audience to reach a new audience that hopefully is more people. And from everything that I've been seeing online, it's working. I have seen countless people have talked about how they absolutely despise Origins combat and they love the action stuff. Hey, that's great. That's for you. Then this game is for you. If you like that action with light RPG elements, things like that, this game is definitely for you. If you still want, and then you're going to get a really compelling and awesome story on top of that with some cool characters. Someone like me, I'm here for the story. I'm here for the characters. I really don't like the combat. I also have massive criticisms with the camera in this game. And that's actually one thing that I noticed a lot of people are complaining about. Hopefully for the PC version, there will be some fixes coming down the line or maybe some mods that will allow it. One of the big things that I don't like is I'm playing a warrior, and every single time I swing my weapon or attack, the camera kind of follows the weapon, and then once the swing's over and it goes back, the camera goes back. So it's like swing, back, and the camera just moves around with it. And I'm like, this is so jarring for me. Can I disable that? I don't know. Or when I'm running around, and this one's not as big of a deal because it never happens really in combat, probably because the camera's already so bad. But if I happen to be running by something where there's an interactable, so it'll be press E to pick up or E to interact, the camera will just on its own jerk and move to it. I'm like, what is that? And that's really only an issue when it's notes or to read something, because you can't pick it up, so it's still there on the ground. Whereas if it's something I'm going to loot, I'm obviously going to look at it and loot it, so that's not a problem. But all in all, so far, game's mid. I really don't like the combat. I hate the camera, but I'm loving the story. I'm loving the visuals. The characters themselves are fantastic. But I do think the written dialogue for the characters is terrible. There's a lot of what I love, and there's a lot that I really don't like. So based on all of that, decide if you really want to play the game or not. If you like the action stuff and the RPG stuff with the story stuff, you probably will at least have a decent time in the game. If you're looking for something more akin to the older Dragon Age, this game is long. That's way bygone. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Leave any comments down below. Like, subscribe if you want to see more content from me. And I will do another video once I've actually finished the game. Alrighty, guys. Catch you on the next one.